I'm still getting this thing positioned. So anyway, we do have a very serious topic. Well, it is a serious thing. We're talking about a conflict that's going on in the Middle East right now, which has been going on for quite a while. Which I might still try to make comedic, relief here and there, but yeah, man, it's a very complex. Shit. See, there we go. Want to keep falling and shit, man. We're already off to a good start, aren't we? But anyway, I'm gonna send him the live. Our guest, the Daniel Troutman from the Daniel Troutman podcast. I think that's what he calls it. Uh, he's gonna help us along a bit, and as I said in the promo, neither of us are experts on this topic. We don't know shit. So take everything we say with like a fucking handful of salt. I know a little something about the Israel-Palestine conflict, but not as much as like somebody who's like a historian or who studies geopolitics like that. Anyway, let me. Oh yeah, load still. There we go. Yeah. Send it to him as well, and Daniel's already here. Anytime, man. Hold on. Send him the wave. Press it. Can you hear me? Hold on. I hear you a little bit. Let me get this volume up. All right. Test.
I hear you. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir. You see
All
me,
right. What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, man. Ready to tackle this so simple topic of Israel and Palestine.
Simple, easy to understand, not complicated at all.
But real quick, this is more so for the people watching and gonna be watching later on YouTube. I'm asking it for them. I kind of know where you stand, but I'm gonna ask this: you are not a Hamas supporter, correct?
That is correct.
You do not tolerate or accept any sort of anti-Semitism, correct?
That is correct.
And you are in no way, shape, or form an anti-Muslim bigot.
That is correct.
Awesome. All right, we can have this conversation.
There we go. Look, it's funny you say that because, like, I'm not going to mention particulars from the conversation we had at MomoCon, but you had told me once you did this interview with this person and it just went the wrong direction, them saying things that were unacceptable quick. And all I could think is, I don't blame you, brother. Ask them questions up front. Ask them questions up front.
I think you're referring to
know.
You're referring to that one show that which I should not have accepted getting on there so short notice, but yeah, long story short, ladies and gentlemen, I did have a meltdown on a particular person's show, but that was because the topics being explored was not the topics that he sent to me, and in which honestly, some transphobia happened, which was like transphobia from the religious aspect, but I was already annoyed by then, and I was like, all right. So anyway, I didn't look too hot.
Yeah, so I say that to say I get it. You were couching all of this with several grains of salt before we get started. I wanted to make sure you were able to finish everything you want to say on that.
Oh yes, sir. So obviously, the current conflict, I believe, Hamas attacked Jewish Jewish civilians.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was during like a music festival or something like that.
Yeah, it was like during a festival. Yeah.
And what's the current death toll now? Is it up to like 900 or?
Oh no, man. I'm pretty sure it's thousands because we've got death tolls from first the Israelis that were attacked. We've got then the death tolls of Palestinians. It's just it's horrible all across the board. I want to kind of introduce kind of my perspective to folks. You and I talk about politics quite a bit. I'm a person who I've got a degree in journalism. I've got a background in understanding the news. It's not my current trade, but I've got the background of being able to kind of look at the news from different perspectives, U.S., international news, and I don't profess to be an expert on Israel Palestine at
Oh,
all.
hold on.
I
That's another thing I'm gonna say.
mm,
Neither the host of this show or Daniel Troutman are experts on the geopolitical side of things, especially on Israel Palestine. So please, after this program, if you're interested, look into it more for yourself. Um,
How you doing,
that
everybody? Sorry about that.
Hey B,
Just
that's my little brother B, Daniel.
what's up, man? How's it going?
I'm
What's
good. I'm
up?
good. I tried to get in here earlier. Instagram kept crashing on me. I had to update the app and everything.
Oh
So, but
dang, see, Zuckerberg's trying to get us, man.
Oh, look, I believe it. Whenever you doing tech stuff, you have to be prepared for something to go wrong. You
yeah,
really do.
yeah.
Um, so where I kind of want to come from here is, so because of kind of like having a background in journalism, somebody who, really tries to inform myself when it comes to politics, and has a view, like my political view is very different from others because I'm very much looking at it from a policy standpoint and not particularly the horse race lens that the news encourages every day. Like the news very much wants us to see political events, in my opinion, in a like a TMZ filter where we are talking and gossiping about things but not really understanding the policy behind them. So I don't really ascribe to that. Marcus knows that when we talk politics, I'm trying to get to the big picture and the macro. So I'm saying all this because when I talk about Israel Palestine, I'm not going to talk specifically about the events that have occurred because the news is covering that as long as you're getting a wide breadth of news, both U.S. and international.
Right.
What I am looking at is that this, like the first point that I want to make is a point of framing, right? That this is a huge conflict, and this conflict goes back thousands of years. And so when we see what's happening now, and the details of what's going on now. I was watching a broadcast where I can't remember her name, but she is a reporter in Jerusalem. She works for the Washington Post, and she was talking about how the Israeli military had warning that this attack was going to happen. They knew that Hamas was going to attack on multiple fronts, and the military had warned Netanyahu and the government. And the government basically told the military that their fighter pilots could go to hell. That's the quote from this journalist. So when we see this attack on Hamas happen, the first thing that happened was everybody was heartbroken, rightfully so, in regards to the Israeli victims and the deaths. But then there was also this push that all you're allowed to say is that this is horrible and Hamas is bad. If you say anything else, you're going to get fired. That's a framing that's happening. Then we see the counter attack by the Israeli government, in particular when it comes to Gaza and the humanitarian crisis, all of these things is going on. And so it's so easy with these events, just like with, events in the U.S., to get kind of caught up in the day by day and the minute by minute breakdown instead of kind of stepping back and going, okay, not only what is going on, but what is the framing of what's going on? When CNN reports it, what is their framing? Because the thing about a frame, it's all about what's in it, but it's also about what's outside of it. Mm-hmm. So what is CNN telling me, but what are they not telling me? What is Fox News saying, but not saying?
Right.
What is ABC News saying and not saying? And then that's just the United States news. What is the British news saying that and not saying? What is the French news? What is Al Jazeera? What AP News, Reuters? These different news broadcasts and wires and publications, there's things that are being included and not included. And so when it comes, the first point I want to make for all of us is that no matter what's going on, it's important for us to recognize that framing is happening.
Right.
So that we inform ourselves to the best of our ability when it comes to these kind of huge, complex, geopolitical, religious issues that are going on, like right now.
Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, what was it? I mean, like every news source, regardless of what they're trying to accomplish, has, was it, like you said, like an implicit bias, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all born with it, you know what I mean? It's just, I think it's, I think it, especially as I've seen a lot of people have been upset with the coverage recently. And I think because when you get to these bigger organizations, like you said, like the CNNs or the Al Jazeeras and stuff like that, you would hope that companies like that would have would have safeguards in there to prevent from those biases. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. And like you said, there's like political factors that like have things to do with it too. So I think that's why with this situation, a lot of people have been kind of upset with the news coverage. You know what I mean? Like I've seen, and it's more so from people I've seen, from at least from what I've seen, it's more so from people who are more on the pro-Palestinian side because they've said that like everybody's just focusing on Hamas, 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 and nobody's focusing on the fact that that region, Israel has essentially created a powder keg for the past couple of decades, and it was only going to blow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or there's the other there's the other thing of it too that nobody talks about either, or framing the framing that Hamas is like it is like everybody over there is just like in love with
Right.
Hamas and what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like that to me is like another significant framing of just like how we, and I don't know if it's purely a Western thing. This may just be a human thing in general. How we need to like find a like when you're told there's a villain in the story, you have to find like like you have to find the thing that like makes it truly bad, And I guess like the like not only is Hamas bad, but everybody over there is supporting them. You know what I mean? Like, and I think yeah, I think that's why a lot of people have been really upset by the coverage of everything, like just taking Netanyahu at his word, taking a lot of different people at their words essentially, but also not focusing on the fact that, there are people over there being harmed by Israel's retaliation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I you made a point that I want to hop on, but before I do, I want to make sure if Marcus was going to say anything that he can before I
Yeah.
Oh,
share a thought.
oh yeah. No, I was gonna say I was gonna speak on the perspective thing because like a lot of people I've watched, like like a lot of news stories, I had to think like, okay, yeah, this is like an American news site, so it's gonna lean towards Israel a little bit more. You know what I mean? So they'll call their retaliation, a simple retaliation and not a well, I'll let you go over that too, like, but not like an over reaction as it seems. Well, yeah, go ahead.
No. And so like when you asked earlier about my views on Hamas and anti-Semitism, I'm really glad that you asked that up front because like well, early on when this happened, one thing I noticed that was very clear was that there wasn't any room for nuance early on. And I understand that because anytime Jewish people are killed, we've got to take that seriously.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. and so anti-Semitism must also be taken seriously. Terrorism also has to be taken seriously. And for me, like, my heart breaks because I see so many innocent people dying, period, in this conflict. And the point that you made that I think is really important to highlight here is when we see all the suffering going on, you mentioned the West versus human, and I think that when you called it that this is a issue of the West, I think you nailed it perfectly there, because this is a Western problem. And the Western problem is that we demonize people in the Middle East, we demonize people in Africa, we demonize anyone around the world who's not white. And so when things are being reported, they're not reported in full, accurate ways. And so first, it's difficult to get a full gauge on what's going on. The second issue, which is another point I want to bring up today, is the issue of education. And I remember during the pandemic, I did therapy because the pandemic was brutal. And one of the things my therapist said that stays with me, and she said, well, you have to remember, we live in a poorly educated society. And that was mind-blowing to hear my therapist say about the United States, because, I mean, we all kind of feel it, but, you know, it's something when an expert says it to you. Not only are Americans poorly educated on things like global affairs, not only are we misinformed, we are actively disinformed. So it's not just that we're not provided enough information. We are intentionally fed things in such a way that we are not able to accurately see what's going on. Because, like, when the attack first happened, it's completely understandable to be angry and hurt at these attacks, because like these are men, women, and children. Like, this is not a case where it's just soldiers on the battlefield. Even that's tragic. Like that is not something we absolve. But instead, like, men, women, and children, this is heartbreaking. And because there's no room for nuance to mourn and lament and then ask questions and have discussion, you see people losing their jobs and these different things. You go, okay, well, wait a minute. Like, maybe I don't need to say anything. I'll be honest, I wasn't going to have any conversations about this topic because I'm seeing people get fired, and I'm like, okay, how much am I going to actually say in public? And I'm still even going to be careful in this conversation. Then you start digging into the story, and you start digging into the history of this. And for me, it was very clear quickly, okay, there's a lot of history here. There's a lot of things that are going on from a policy standpoint. And so you have multiple things going on in this situation all at one time. You have Hamas, you have the Israeli victims who died, and any more who might die. You have Palestinian victims. You have Palestinian government. You have Israeli government, which is key thing, not the same as the Israeli people and not the same as Jewish people. Then you have neighboring countries and alliances that are starting to rise up as far as different positions being taken. For example, you have Egypt trying to get humanitarian aid in there. So you have all of these multiple moving parts going on and things that are going to change by the day. You have President Biden, who is trying to get like $100 billion in aid for Ukraine and for this conflict. You have the military, who they might be sending people to support if they haven't already. I have a friend who's in the military, and they were telling me that their spouse might not, might have to go because of this. There's so many moving parts. And so then the conversation, to try to have an informed conversation about this, becomes very, very difficult. What I will say, I'm 36. How old are y'all? Mark is here, what?
32.
32? How old are you?
I'm 25, sir.
Okay. What I will say so far, I've noticed in my experience, is that the younger folks you guys are able to get a wider breadth of this issue than people my age and especially older.
Right.
And so when I hear y'all talk, even in this conversation so far, I'm hearing things that go, okay, they're not just looking at this the way they're being told to think about it.
Right.
They're informing, they're educating themselves, and that's refreshing. It's still work that we all have to do to try to understand this. But like with younger folks, man, I there's a part of me jealous of y'all, even though I have access to it too. Because man, y'all got TikTok and like y'all got stuff that like different generations didn't have in the past. I want to take a moment to highlight Michelle, saying he's speaking facts. Thank you so much. That's my sister. I appreciate you. So I'll end this part with saying that the education component of this is so very important, and that we have to educate ourselves through books, through lectures, through news from this country and other countries to get a handle on what's going on, and also from different perspectives, because some people are going to say this is what's going on, and then others are going to say, well, I don't think that's the case. And it's putting it all together that we then see, oh, so this is where we are right now, and this is what's going on right now.
Yeah, I definitely think the perspective thing is definitely important. You talked about how like the younger generations are more. I feel like you're right. I definitely agree with you that we have, and even the ones younger than me have even more knowledge of like the wider range of sources and where to get information. I think the issue kind of becomes what are those sources? Are these I was a history major in college, so like you always have to be careful of what sources you read, like where you're getting them from, all that type of stuff. So it's definitely important to understand like who's disseminating this information, where they get their information from. It kind of goes back to what you were talking about with the media companies in terms of like political leanings, like because I've noticed that politics has crept its way into this conversation on social media, and so different people, different political backgrounds are influencing different stuff. So it definitely comes from like where you're getting your sources, and I think B too. You were talking about nuance and how nuance is so very important in this discussion, and unfortunately. Well, I feel like it's kind of quieted down a little bit, but like I want to say over the past couple weeks, it was just like real bad. Like, cause I even, like at, I'll even say I was kind of shaking my head at some of the people who was like getting upset that there were people saying, I don't agree with the Hamas attacks, but I'm also anti-Israel. And there were people who were getting upset about that, and they were like saying that they were Israel apologists and shit. And I'm kind of just like, guys, like, read what they actually just wrote. Like, you know what I mean? There's a difference between being upset that Hamas kidnapped women and children and killed some of them versus I vote with Israel going in and bombing the Gaza Strip. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, like you said, there's just those nuanced conversations. But, like I said, it's people all over. It's also like, for instance, the stupid celebrities who tried to weigh in on it and stuff like that too. And were like making it seem like
that picture of like didn't Bieber show like a picture of like the Gaza Strip, and it was like pray for Israel.
Yeah, I think he had a caption supporting Israel, which is his prerogative, but the picture was of like devastated Gaza, and so it just
But but even then, nuance on them factors too. For real, there's a difference too between somebody who's like very ignorantly throwing their support behind Israel and somebody else who's just kind of dumb for real. Like, you know what I mean? Like to be a situation like that, I don't think Justin Bieber was sitting there saying, hi, I'm gonna get one over on these Palestinians today. He's probably just dumb and assumed it was the same place. Like,
That
or
could have
for real,
been it.
he probably don't even run that account. His
Yeah,
social media
I was gonna
manager,
say. I was gonna
like,
say it's possible
he
somebody
probably
was
has
a
not
little
seen the
pissed.
password to that social media account in 5 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, these conversations are definitely important. But yeah, like you said, nuance. I think it's definitely a mixture of nuance and patience. You know what I'm saying? Like, while
Patience is
you have to have the nuance to understand like the varying angles, while also having the patience for people who are may not agree with you. Now, if somebody's just blatantly saying, "Oh, I hope they bomb them all," then it's like, well, clearly don't talk to that person because they're
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. There's
But
no room
like,
for that at all.
right.
but
There's no
like,
room for that at all. Yeah.
right, but like, if there's somebody who you can tell that like they're coming from a place of just not having all the facts. Like I always cringe when I'll see somebody like just start like Twitter's the worst place for shit
Oh,
like for conversations like this.
Amen.
Dove's
And
dead name on
like
Twitter is
like
X now. Yeah.
yeah, 80%, what I should say, more so 90% of the tweets I've seen on this topic have been the fucking worst from all sides. And I hate to try to do like a whole centrist type issue, but I've seen all sides of this conflict tweet the stupidest shit over the past couple weeks, and I've just been like, I hope all of y'all's phones shut the fuck off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's just, God forbid, like, someone's like, oh man, I can't believe that person died. Oh, so you support this. It's just
Right.
like,
Just
oh,
jumping to
Jesus.
conclusions.
Yeah, just shut the hell up. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just, oh
And
man, just
real
the
quick, man,
worst.
I wanted to praise Daniel for separating the IDF from Israelis
Yeah,
and Jewish people because unfortunately, like a lot of people that's pro Palestine, they'll equate the IDF with Judaism,
yeah.
which that brings up a lot of anti-Semitism. However,
Hmm.
unfortunately, there are people with like legit Zionist beliefs, and I mean, this is gonna sound strong, but I'm gonna have to throw Mr. Bibi Netanyahu in there. I I mean, he shows signs of a Zionist to me, but that, like I
Yeah.
said, that
I
can't be
mean.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
strong
Yeah.
accusation. But like, but how deep does the Zionism go? Like how influential are
Well,
they?
I think it's also hard to gauge that because for instance, I saw people were coming at people have kind of been on both sides with Gal Gadot in this issue because I think she posted stuff about both sides. But like, I don't know. I feel like it's also a weird thing because it's like there've been like people like Gal Gadot or like other people actually from Israel who have like put up like, oh, pray for Israel or whatever, and people get mad at them. I'm like, they live there.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Listen.
Like,
Listen.
it's
I'm not
like,
trying to tell anyone from those places what to think or feel about this situation.
right,
Just as I wouldn't want anyone to see a police shooting in the United States. So these are not the same, but I think the comparison will be understandable. I don't want anyone after a police shooting of a black person in the United States to tell me how to feel. You know what I'm saying?
right,
Like there's a lived experience, there's a context, there's an understanding I bring to it.
right,
And I respect and appreciate people who bring that context to this issue as well. So like with Gal Gadot, I don't have any comment on it because I think she served in the Israeli military. Who am I to say anything to her?
Right.
right.
You know?
Well, then like I've seen again, it's also like you said, a lack of education. Because I've also seen people like, oh my God, she served in the IDF. Oh my God, she's evil. I'm just like, she had to. Like that's
Yeah.
the law.
Yeah.
Like y'all can't,
So,
they can't not
Right.
do that over there.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I think one of the kidnapping victims, or well, actually, I don't know if she was kidnapped or if she was killed. I can't remember. But I think they said one of them, whichever one. I apologize for getting this wrong, but one of them was in the IDF, and then they were like, "Oh, serve her right. She was a soldier on behalf of Israel, and she knew what she was signing up for. She didn't sign up. Like that's the whole point. Like
Yeah.
it's conscription. Like you know what I'm saying? Like like that's the whole point, guys. Like like you said, it's a lack of education because some people really don't know that.
Yeah,
Like you know what I'm saying? Like
exactly. Exactly. It's a lack of education. And now I want to touch on a few things. You've made some really great points as far as the lack of education, the context, the patience. When it comes to Benjamin Netanyahu being a Zionist, I don't have any comment on that because number one, like I'm not an expert on it. I do know he's right wing. I do know there are serious calls according to those reporting in the area, like even on like Israeli radio and local publications, there's really a hard push against him not knowing that this was going to happen, not having the intel needed, and people having questions about whether they can continue to feel safe with him. I read one of the hostages felt that way who was released. Now, I want to couch that by saying if I was a hostage, you release me. I don't know where a person's mind is. I'm just glad she's okay in the midst of so much suffering. So I can't really speak to that with Netanyahu. I do know he's right wing. I can say that much. What I can say as well when it comes to the patience and context, I'm really glad you brought up Twitter because it was said even here, Twitter is not the place to have serious discussions. And I think that there's something to that now. I think it used to be the case that Twitter was more of a place you could have serious discussion because I follow activists, I follow organizers, I follow scholars and academics and different people. Now the platform is slowly being destroyed through incompetence and malevolence. And so because of that, trying to have these kind of conversations is already difficult, but I think they're extremely difficult, bordering on impossible when you do them through a text exchange.
Yeah.
So I think having this conversation through text, through email, through Twitter, through a Facebook post, I just think I'm not doing it because when
like
people
especially like you know, it's like you're like the person you're talking to, and on their side as well, like you're behind a profile picture. So depending on who you're talking to, they're gonna be really brave and just say some shit that they will not say to you in person. So.
But also, when we read words, we read them the way we feel, not necessarily how they're communicated. That's something that they taught us in college, and it changed the way I kind of view communication. I still got in arguments online, and it still took me time to get to a point where I stopped arguing with people online. But so I think video is a place to better lay out positions in such a way that people can not only hear what you're saying, but they can hear your tone of voice, they can see your face, they can see facial expressions, and all these things kind of add up to better communication. And when it comes to then talking to people online, you're better than me, bro, because I'm really not trying to argue with anybody. I'm past that phase of my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know you a history major. I think that's dope. But you have a conversation with people online, I'm just past that point.
Oh no, I don't be arguing with nobody on there. That's too much. Even when I was like younger in high school, I couldn't do no shit like that because I just get mad and I just be like, and then at the end of the day, I just be like, I just got mad with a person I'll never see again, and then you feel stupid. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like it's just like
stupid as hell. You're like, bro, I don't even know this nigga, and I just lost 3 years of my life from stress, like arguing with this guy.
Because
like I think Oh no, I was about to say the last argument I got with somebody was like on Facebook. I want to say like 2-3 years ago. Marcus, you probably remember that. It was we're in a group on Facebook, an anime group, and
were those the Amber Defenders?
Nah, we was arguing about something with Black Panther. It was like like I said, it was something stupid, right? It was something stupid, and this guy
it must be one of those Killmonger was right things.
And the guy just kept coming at me, and then he took it real personal, and so I was like, "Oh, fuck this dude!" Like, and I was sitting there writing a paper at school in college, I should be focusing on that. And here I am arguing with some random motherfucker about a Black Panther movie. What the hell?
Listen. I'd be here all day having that Killmonger conversation because it was really frustrating to have friends, family, like people be like, yeah, like Killmonger had a point, and I'm just like, did you not see the part where he like killed his girlfriend and used her as leverage? Or did you not see the part where he choked the woman? Like, or did you not see the part where the man was basically an imperial asset? Like what are
Yes,
you talking about?
that
Like,
was
like,
that was the
huh?
part I argued. Like in that specific argument, it was the imperial asset shit was the thing for me because they were sitting there talking about oh he was gonna save black people. I'm like by becoming a colonist, like
Yeah,
like
I was
he
like,
came
okay,
in, he came in. Destroyed the ancestral herb of his own people. By the way, he did it to his own people. 90% of the people he killed in that movie was black folks. Like I was in, and I was just like, but he's the great savior. And this man on that Facebook group was so goddamn mad. But actually, no, it wasn't just him. I think like 4 other people joined in, but it was mainly this guy who kept it going. And he just kept coming at me. Then he called me like a coon at one point, and that's when like I went off. I'm sitting there typing hard as hell on my phone, like and then like I was saying, the next day I was just like I spent hours of my life arguing with this motherfucker like over some
yep,
shit that means nothing. Like who
yep.
gives a fuck? Like
Exactly. Now somebody said, my sister said that's not the important part. Is Michael B. Jordan? Okay, some of y'all focus on what the man brother was wearing and not what he was saying and doing. We just gonna put that there. Yeah. So like with those kind of Facebook arguments, like you regret it the next day. You're like, you know what? Like, why did I even do this? Um, and you know, like with Killmonger, there's an interesting point there that I think kind of ties to the Israel-Palestine conflict, and that is that when we talk about Black Panther, when we talk about Killmonger, there was a conversation that this brought up about Black Americans, about Black suffering in the United States, about the diaspora,
yeah,
about the relationship between Black Americans and Black people across the diaspora, and all these different aspects about colonialism that you brought up, and I think and Black liberation, that was a big
right,
thing. And I bring that up because, like, for me personally, what I'm very comfortable saying is that I view my politics through the lens of Black liberation, through the lens of radical Black feminism, and through the lens of liberty and justice for all. I look at my politics through the lens of Angela Davis, Bell
right,
Hooks, James Baldwin, Malcolm X, Dr.
yeah,
King, Medgar Evers, so many of our freedom fighters.
yeah,
And so for me, I look at everything going on and my heart breaks for everyone that's suffering, but I'm not going to turn my back on Palestinian people. And I'm talking about the people
right,
who are innocent, who are suffering. I'm not turning my back on them because they haven't turned their back on us. Like
right,
when you look at Black liberation and you look at different leaders, whether it's
right,
Mandela or
right,
Malcolm X or Angela Davis, they all have an aspect of their politic and policy in which they're discussing Palestine.
yeah,
And so it is vitally important, and since we're on this subject as Black people, that
right,
we understand that the education that we've got to do for ourselves, like
right,
my education is not just about the civil rights, because that's just one aspect
right,
of Black liberation. That's one period of Black
right,
liberation. But it's
right,
also understanding, for example, that looking at things through the lens of like radical Black feminism as a means to lift up all Black people,
right,
then we understand that when we understand our struggles and the ways in which we fight against colonialism, white supremacy, patriarchy, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, capitalism, particularly predatory capitalism in this day and age,
right,
American imperialism, when we recognize all of these things that are pressing against us, then we have to look. Then I feel like one of them Hotep brothers, like my brother.
I was just about to say, as soon as you did this, I wanted somebody to put the thing. You need one of the things on there.
That's crazy. I was thinking about Omni Man, like think, Mark, think.
No, of course you did. But when we understand these interlocking oppressions that we face as Black people in the United States and around the world, and we understand it's all of these different oppressions, it's not just one. No, I am not Dr. Umar. Don't do that. When we understand that, then what happens is we start to be able to look around the world and we say, okay, who else is suffering? Like when you read like Pedagogy of the Oppressed, you say, okay, who else is suffering like this? Where else is this suffering? So you'll see it, for example, in Nigeria with SARS, which is like this extra police force where the beatings that were happening to innocent folks by that police force look just like what's happening in the United States. You then be able to start connecting to other countries and you say, okay, your suffering looks a lot like my suffering. How do we link up together? The problem becomes that then folks, and this is where we have to be very careful because this has come up a few times in the conversation, but I want to mention it again. We have to be careful because there's a whole segment of people that are looking for every opening they can to be anti-Semitic. And where Marcus was great at the beginning of this conversation, we're going to keep saying it, is that we do not endorse anti-Semitism in any respect, even in ways that we don't know we're being anti-Semitic, because there is anti-Semitism that people practice they don't even know about. When you become aware of it, you've got to stop it. You've got to eradicate that from your behavior. We can simultaneously stand with innocent Palestinian people who want liberty and justice for all, and stand with Jewish people who want liberty and justice for all. And we can question how this conflict is going, especially because the United States is taking a very active position on one side of this conflict. We can ask those questions, we can speak up about it, and we can also do it in a way that's loving, a way that accounts for suffering of everyone who is suffering and doesn't give quarter at all to hatred.
Exactly. That whole checking anti-Semitism thing is especially important because I'm not even so much with this. I've noticed it. I've noticed it in small ways throughout my life, but it took me getting older to realize, like, and I don't know if it's just like me. I didn't realize how much anti-Semitism was baked into our community until I got older. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I've heard little shit here and there from like, crazy uncles or something like that. But like you kind of do the thing where you just write it off. You just go, whatever. That's not really, you know what I'm saying? But like when you like you get older and you start to think, and you just be like, how the hell did we specifically get? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's crazy. Like you'll hear little shit or like you said, even with this conflict, you'll like, again, terrible tweets. But this kind of brings up two things we talk about: terrible tweets and like the Hotep motherfuckers, because there's been pockets of them who be like, man, we gotta support Palestine, and then it's like when you see the long tweet and you gotta hit the see more button.
Yep.
And it'd be like, all right, see more. And it'd be like, because the Jews is running everything. You're like, oh, whoa, right.
You're like,
no.
Like,
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's like, oh,
No, you're exactly right. And this is a really great point because I had the same path you did. Same thing of not knowing what anti-Semitism was when I was younger because I didn't grow up around Jewish people.
Right.
And getting older and you hear anti-Semitism, but see, and this is just my opinion. Sorry about the cough. I'm getting over a cold.
No, you're good.
And maybe this was my experience, that in my experience, black people, we don't call it anti-Semitism.
Mm.
We just look at the brothers who do this and we go, oh, okay, he going too far. Like, that's what he
Yeah.
does. You know what I'm saying? Like, whether it's the Hotep guy, it's the Hebrew Israelite dude, or the guy at the barbershop, no matter who it is, like, we look at that person and we all know intuitively, okay, that's the guy who always takes it too far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then you get older and you realize, wait a minute, like, whether it's Kanye and his anti-Semitism, whether it's Kyrie Irving and his anti-Semitism, although it's not clear to me that he even knew that it was anti-Semitism and he knew the harm he did, but whether he knew it or not, sharing that documentary that was anti-Semitic, that's a problem.
Right.
Or even if you go back in the day with, was it Terminator X with Public Enemy? One of the folks with Public Enemy ended up getting in trouble. It might not have been Terminator X. I think it was the professor, now that I think about it. But he got in trouble because he made anti-Semitic remarks. Yeah.
Or what was it? Was it what? I think this was Nick Cannon. Didn't he like?
Yeah, he hosted
he like
somebody.
Yeah, he hosted
Nick Cannon
somebody.
made anti-Semitic remarks. Yeah, he. I think the term he used was like savages.
Well, no.
Like, no,
he said it himself too.
Okay, I don't remember that part. What I first remember with Nick Cannon was, I don't know if he made the original post or not, but he shared like a screenshot of this book. Like I said, I don't know if he was reposting somebody else's thing or what, but the screenshot of the book was essentially like, it was, what's the Hebrew Israelite thing was like, Jews aren't real Jews.
Oh, it's one of them books without barcodes.
Yeah. And then like, it has something crazy about Hitler on the page. This happened like 4 years ago, so I forgot what the fuck it actually said. But it said something like that, and it also had something crazy about Hitler in it. I think that was the initial thing, because I was like, yeah, that's crazy as hell. Why the fuck would you even? The minute you see Hitler's name in the book, that's probably when you should probably say, maybe I shouldn't post this.
You should. That's when you know you're in trouble. You've gone too far. You need to stop. But why this happens is really important, because that you alluded to that. You brought up, where do we get this from? And the answer is, whether people like it or not, we get it from society.
Yeah.
And so then we have to ask, okay, who runs society? Who's in charge? That's where the anti-Semitism comes from. And that's where the conversations get very uncomfortable, because we got it from somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, for example, there's a really good book by Rabbi Mike Harvey. It's called Let's Talk. And it's an inner dialogue book between that. He's trying to build dialogue between Jewish people and Christians. And I encourage everybody to read the book if you're serious about understanding anti-Semitism, because one of the points he makes in the book is that there's a lot of anti-Semitism that we're taught in the church, and we don't even know it. Even in the ways that different scriptures are taught, and the way that they cast Jewish people in, in certain light. These are things that are passed down to us. Even, for example, in the way that politics talks about Israel, it's not in a way that sees Israeli people as equal human beings who deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Because if that were the case, we should be able to have righteous dialogue. We should be able to struggle in dialogue. We should be able to disagree with one another while recognizing the humanity of each other. When we can't even disagree with folks, then not only are we being unfairly treated, but the people that we're not allowed to disagree with are being unfairly treated. And I'm not talking about in every context. I mean, in being able to ask questions about, hey, what's going on in this conflict? Why is it being handled this way? Could it be handled in a different way? Okay, so it has to be handled like this. Why? Asking these questions, understanding it, we should be able to have these dialogues but in a way to build understanding, to deepen understanding. And so the anti-Semitism, unfortunately, is everywhere, and it's only growing. Like, there was a football game this past week, Michigan State. They played Michigan, and they were doing a quiz because Michigan State was getting the brakes beat off of them. And so they pulled a quiz from YouTube. It was like a quiz video. And one of the quiz questions was about Hitler. And so at this stadium, this past Saturday, there's a picture of Hitler on the scoreboard.
Wow.
So people are like, what is going on here? So the school apologized. They said, oh, this is absolutely terrible. We're so sorry. We didn't know. But when I heard the story, I went, there would be a time that would have never happened. And the time that we live in now, it's rising anti-Semitism. It's been rising for years. The past president fueled it. And so this continues to rise. More and more Jewish people feel unsafe at synagogues, unsafe in public, unsafe at home. And
or I was going to say, even you got real violence too. Like, I mean, in my city, Pittsburgh, we had one of I think it's like a record Jewish hate crime attack. Like, I don't know if it's like the most number of victims or something like that. But the Tree of Life shooting. I literally just passed the Tree of Life the other day. You know what I mean? Like, and I think about it every time. It's crazy. Like you know what I mean? Like, and to think like you said, like we live in a world where that stuff is just keep going and going and going, and then on top of the anti-Semitism too, in terms of like this whole conversation that we're having, I was thinking too about the Islamophobia too, because that also has started to rear its ugly head. And I think a lot of people, I've seen pockets of it in some of these conversations over the past few weeks in terms of like I saw like somebody try to say that like because they were like arguing why the U.S. needs to send money to Israel because they were like, whoa, you see what type of stuff those people believe. Do you really want that spreading throughout the whole world or something like that? And you know very well what they meant by those people. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's just like,
I think even one of our own politicians, what was it, like Lindsey Graham or something, was like just bomb it, like or something.
yeah,
like
wouldn't surprise me.
It
But
is
like,
not the first time I've heard politicians talk about bombing. I think during one of the primaries, maybe when Trump was running back in 2016, I remember
bomb the shit out of them, basically.
Yeah, they were like, bomb it till it turns to glass. And like they were talking about like the Middle East or wherever. I can't remember exactly what they were talking about, but there's no excuse either way. And you just hear those things and you're just like what world am I living in where this kind of rhetoric is acceptable? Like, we're talking about human beings, but it gets to the point that, especially in these kind of conversations and topics, like there are charged words, there are buzzwords, there are words that should be seen as luggage. And those words have so much packed in them that various sides use these words in order to get a response out of people. So Hamas is one of those words. You say Hamas and there's a reaction that people have. And what I'm encouraging people to do is not to not feel for those who are suffering. We talked about the suffering of all the innocent people multiple times, and I'm going to keep mentioning that. But also to ask questions, to that patience that was talked about earlier of, okay, like, what is Hamas?
Right.
And one quick thing I want to say, for all of us, no matter how much we think we know about this, we should all assume we know less than we think we do. Always. Because even I was reading some things and learned something new, and I was like, like, of course I'm learning something new. This is not my expertise. And so, to think about the hate crimes that Jewish people go through, this is why even when we have this conversation, we have to have it so carefully, because anti-Semitism leads to dead Jewish people. And here we have a horrible crisis where we have innocent Palestinians, innocent Israelis dying on both sides. And the move is not to rush in and say terrible things like we're seeing people do online. It's to have compassion. It is to feel for those who are suffering, to help in the ways that we can, and encourage people not to fuel the wrong fire. Like, you know.
Right. No, yeah, most definitely. You know, and unfortunately, was it? I don't know if these attacks were in America or not, but I did hear recently of both of like different stories of like uh um it is people of the Islamic faith, and then I've heard Jewish people being attacked too. What was it? Somebody like I heard of like a stabbing that happened
Yeah, there was a
recently. Yeah,
stabbing. I think it was a
yeah.
Palestinian kid, a young boy who was killed.
Oh,
Mhm.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Yeah, that.
yeah.
Yeah, just
And that's the consequences of irresponsible, dangerous speech. And
right,
dangerous not in you can't say what you want.
right.
Dangerous is in
Insightful.
people got to think before they speak, man.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And it's just, you know, and yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I don't know if we like want to. Yeah, definitely just like we said, like uh, proper sources, compassion, nuance, understanding, all that stuff. Because like unfortunately, cases like that is what you get when you lack those things, and it's just
Absolutely. And I want to say one quick thing, if y'all don't mind, about sources, if
yeah,
that's okay.
good.
Be like what I encourage people to do is think about where you get your news from.
Hmm.
So let me give an example. CNN, okay? When I go to CNN, I will occasionally visit their website.
Hmm.
And I'd say occasionally, maybe once in a week. And if I go to their website, I'm not going to CNN to educate myself about the world. That's
Yeah,
not the role I see for CNN.
yeah,
And I'm definitely not watching any news, hardly any news. Like I don't really watch the news at all. Like TV, I don't watch the news.
okay,
And I'm not gonna say people shouldn't watch it. I'm gonna explain to you why I don't watch it.
yeah,
Because you can learn a lot about a program by the ads that run.
hmm,
And what you learn about the news, if you watch it carefully, is that the news is structured to get you to watch it. It's
yep,
not necessarily about informing you, it's about getting a reaction from you so you watch it.
hmm,
And so that does not always align incentive wise with educating yourself deeply on the topic. And so I don't, if I want to learn something, I read it. I don't watch
yeah,
it. Unless it's YouTube. YouTube is a little different because I can watch the full video and I can go and find the sources I want to find.
yeah,
So what I encourage people to do is be mindful of your sources when it comes to the news. For example, I encourage people to look at places like the AP, like
yeah,
the AP News Wire,
yeah, yeah,
because you're getting the story before people add their editorials to it.
yeah,
Because a lot of publications, they take that story, then they add more to it.
hmm,
CNN will add more to that story. And if you read their story, sometimes you'll see a story initially appeared in Newswire.
right,
So get your stuff. If you want to know what's going on, go to AP, go to Reuters.
hmm,
That's a Canadian news wire. I like to go there to see what's going on, and then I like to look at international news.
yeah,
I like to see what other countries are saying, because, for example, I was watching some foreign news, and they were talking about how there's when you look at the world, the
hmm,
United States and North America has a certain view of what's going on, but then like Central America is different.
right,
Like South America, different view. Europe, Africa, like then when you look at like the UN votes, then you can see, okay, this is where different countries are voting when it comes to things like emergency aid or ceasefire. And you can
right,
see who's voting for the ceasefire, who's voting against it,
right,
who's voting for the emergency aid, who's vetoing it.
hmm,
And then you go, okay, well, if the United States did a veto, why is the United States doing a veto? what does this mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then you add together, and I want to give an example of what I mean. January 6th, when it happened, I was like, what? What is going on? And I want people to see the difference in what I'm saying. So when I looked at the U.S. news, they were initially reporting it a certain way, like this is what's going on, but there was a limit on what they would show. Their pictures were of like the Capitol as it stood, no like disorder and chaos. I went over to BBC News, the British Broadcasting Corporation, and I immediately see the fire that was going on there. The British, like the American news was like, oh my God, this is something is going on. We don't have all the details. We'll update you. The British news was like, yo, this is bad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And earlier on, and then the French news was like, this is monumental in U.S. history. You know what I mean? And so then I was like, wait a minute. I realized how bad it was early because I was going to different news sites instead of just going to U.S. news. If you want to get your news in the U.S., I encourage people to check out Democracy Now! I encourage people to check out PBS NewsHour. I know that sounds like old people stuff, but PBS don't have nearly as much bias as a lot of these other places. NPR is useful, but NPR has a bias as well. And when I say bias, I'm talking about left and right, like both. You want to get, like, I try to get my news as unfiltered as possible. And then you have publications around the world that you can read. All of this can help you understand what's going on to see not only what's happening, but also what you're not being told.
Right. I definitely agree. It was weird because the one place I saw that was actually like with the January 6th thing that was covered that did show some of the violence. I think we was watching it that day on NBC News. I remember on NBC, I think they were showing some of the violence because I remember weirdly enough that day I was buying a new phone at the AT&T store, and then me and my mom was in the AT&T store, and they just had it on in the background. I'm like, tap my mom on the shoulder, hey, look up there. What the heck is
What
that
is
going
going
on?
on over there?
And then we went back home and turned on.
My phone right now.
Yeah, we went back home and turned on that same channel, and yeah, they were showing at least some of the violence. I'll say with CNN, I don't know. Like I've been critical of CNN at times too, but I'll say, and this is both a hurt to CNN and kind of a help. They do have right wing commentators on there, so for as much as people like yell that they're like a liberal rag or whatever, I'll say they have their fair share of right wingers on there. Now, I have personally disagree with that. I mean, not well. I disagree with some of the people they have on there. Let's be honest, because sometimes they'll get people on there that are awful. And I'm not talking about because they're Republicans. I'm talking about because they're pieces of shit. Like, and they'll offer them multi-million-dollar contracts to be commentators on there, and it pisses me the fuck off. But that, like I said, that's both a tick in the bad and the good, because on one hand, they do have more than just your quote-unquote liberal heroes, as Twitter calls them, like Don Lemon and shit like that. But on the other hand, yeah, it is bad that like CNN is also more so again a product than it is an actual news. I'll say my mom always watched ABC News like ever since I was a little kid, and so I kind of gravitate more towards ABC more so as a familiarity. I'll be honest, when I watch it, I was kind of thinking about this during the 2016 and a bit of the 2020 election. I was trying to gauge because I remember that's when I first started hearing the big conversation about like the news and who you should trust and who you shouldn't. And I remember trying to gauge why I kept going back to ABC News. And like I said, it's part of a familiarity thing because my mom, like, that's one thing every 6 o'clock during the week, every day at 6, she gotta watch David Muir. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that, but I think there's a part of that, but there's also too like when they would talk about stuff, like for instance, when they would talk about Trump, uh, even though I didn't like that they played a lot of, they played some of his clips that I wish they wouldn't have, but it wasn't a lot. Like I feel like when it came to with like CNN and shit or like MSNBC, they would first they start off by saying how much they hated him, but then they'd play all his shitty ass clips, and I'll just be like, "Well, stop playing the goddamn
All day.
clips." Yeah, like you know what I'm saying, like especially because he's talking about y'all. Like y'all should spend this time rebutting rather than playing his bullshit clips. Like you know what I'm saying?
Rebutting.
Yeah, like
Rebutting. What
yeah,
is that?
you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that was what pissed me off a lot during the 2016 elections. It was just like they would just play his garbage over and over and over, and then like they were surprised when people didn't know
I
that he
didn't really
had no
have a comment.
policy. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just people were like, oh wait, he didn't really have a lot of policy points. I'm like, yeah, of course he didn't. But you didn't know that because all you were hearing was him calling Hillary Clinton fat for the 10th time that day. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but like I'll say I didn't really get a lot of that with ABC. CBS News, I don't really watch the live coverage. Their online service, I used to use them a lot for high school. When I had to do reports and stuff, I used to use them a lot. Like you said, Democracy Now! Is pretty dope. YouTube is kind of tricky because, like you said, you can get the full video, but also it's tricky, like depending on where you go. While I'm personally a fan of there's a there's a channel called the Majority Report.
Oh yeah,
I
Sam
don't know if you
Cedar.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I'm a
familiar.
fan of them, but I also know they come from a certain element. You know what I'm saying? And they're not going to talk about certain things, or they're going to talk about certain things differently. Like for instance, there are times I don't always agree with them. You know what I mean? But I know there are some people who will take their word as gospel and have to take it 100%. People do the same thing with on the other political spectrum of me of like people who watch I don't know Ben Shapiro or some shit. You know what I'm saying? So like like I personally don't get it, but I think again that's the danger when it comes to YouTube is they have to generate
Mm.
clicks, kind of like corporate news, but also, you know, depending on who you're watching, it's coming from a tailored perspective,
And
if you will. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying?
just
And
just
I,
to
no,
just to
go ahead.
speak on the sources on there. Yeah, y'all both made some very good points. I mean, basically, you do got to have the patience to stomach all different sides of things. And look, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I can't. I'm sorry, I cannot sit through a Fox News segment. But
Wait. I'm
um,
not saying that you should listen to all sides. I'm not saying that.
oh no, it was a bigger point I was making.
Okay, yeah.
I believe recently, just sort of steering the conversation back. Was it? I want to say that Israel block outside news reporting from from their broadcasting.
I might have heard something about that, but I'm not knowledgeable enough on it.
Okay. I was wondering yeah, 'cause I was wondering that because I believe they block, yeah, I believe they blocked Al Jazeera and stuff like that, and to the people watching, please fact check me on that.
Yeah.
But that's that's not pushing the agenda. What is? And also as as y'all both said, I also wonder what it's like, saying being influenced by those other pieces of media. Because if you watch Fox News or OAN or something like that,
Yeah,
you're thinking all of Palestine is Hamas and Hamas is Palestine.
right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You're just getting that full fledged oh yeah, Israel's good, Palestine fuck them, put them in the ground kind of thing. And it's I don't know. And it's I guess it's how does one keep themselves from being trapped in that chamber? You know.
Well, what I would say first is it's all about like where you start and where you're going. So the reason why I'm not really interested in hearing both sides of various issues. It depends on the issue. So for example, when it comes to Israel Palestine, I am not when I want to know what's going on, okay? I don't care what either side has to say because I know that both sides have a slant. That's not what I'm interested in when I'm trying to educate myself. I just want to know what happened. I want to know what the facts are. And what's happened is because we're in a time of post-truth where truth doesn't really matter anymore and where everybody wants their own set of facts.
Kojima called it back in
2001.
Right.
We don't start at the truth and then split to different sides. Everybody's just on their side. And so I'm not doing that. I start where the facts are. So when I saw people started talking about Palestine and the attack by Hamas, I was like, wait, I don't want to hear what anybody has to say.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened. And then I'm going to go see what happened. And then I'm going to look at what people are saying. And what I saw was like, I don't really want to talk to any of y'all because none of us knows enough to be saying everything. And the very few people who are saying things, that's fine. But the people who are most knowledgeable are not talking because there's so much going on and there's so much to sift through. That's the first thing. And then once we get a decent understanding of a subject, whatever it is, when it comes to keeping yourself grounded and maneuvering all of it, understand, and this is why I mentioned the framing earlier, understand the forces at play to shape your thinking and movement. So for example, algorithms. And brother made a great point about YouTube and why you got to be careful. The reason why you got to be careful with YouTube is that algorithm.
Right.
If you go on YouTube and search for, let's say, ABC News, you're going to be fine as long as you go to ABC News if that's what you're looking for. Where you then start getting in, where you got to be careful with YouTube is the related, the suggestions, the recommendations, because that algorithm, just like Google, is catered to showing you what you want to see, so you'll keep watching and stay on the website. And Twitter, same way. It's devolving, it's falling apart. But these social media platforms, Instagram, all of them, they want to keep you on the website. They and then because with your attention, they can sell ads, they can track you, they can make money. So understanding all of that helps you to be mindful, because it's easier to not get scammed when you know somebody's trying to scam you. When you don't know somebody trying to scam you, that's when you're a mark. So understand that in, like with Israel Palestine, there are so many people who have agendas, and they are trying to get you to think and feel a particular way for whatever reason. Your job in the midst of all this, the general you, is to maneuver this issue and every issue with integrity, to understand what is actually happening, what are the facts, and then as you understand it better, then you can move to a particular side. Like I like to watch Benjamin Dixon. He's a black political commentator. He's dope. I like him. And I'm going to tell you why I like Ben. I'm going to be fully honest. When I listen to somebody talk about news or politics, I want to listen to a black person, because I do not think you can have a reasonable, intelligent perspective about issues that happen in the United States if you do not have a sufficiently deep and profound understanding of race. And so when there are a host of people on YouTube, right and left, that I do not watch. I'm not going to listen to them because they can't even begin to have an intelligent discussion if they're not even accounting for race. Like Israel Palestine, there's so much that has to be brought into the conversation.
Right.
And if they're saying, like, I don't see race, or I don't want to discuss Middle East conflict, or I don't want to discuss U.S. involvement in Middle Eastern affairs, then you are not informed enough to tell me anything.
Right.
Because you got to bring all of that to bear. And that kind of mindset helps you sift away the people who are like, oh, I'm just, like the people, for example, who are like Black Christians, for example, or just Christians in general, who talk about Israel today as though it's Israel from 3,000 years ago.
Exactly.
That doesn't make sense. And that's where you can say to folks in the...
ask, that's something I wanted to ask, by the way, because I know religion is like, like an arm of the conflict. It's not the whole thing, no matter what the fedora tipping, my fedora.
It's a major part of it.
Yeah. But like I remember the GOP was pro-Israel just for religious reasons.
Yeah.
The GOP is pro-Israel, but not just for religious reasons. It's complex, and it goes back several decades. What I'll say with this is, when it comes to the religious aspect, if you're having a conversation with a Christian, then it's going to be understandable that the Christian takes the side of Israel because of what has been taught in church and what is believed. But that's where the loving, kind, Socratic conversation has to happen to say, do you think Israel today is the same as Israel from 3,000 years ago?
Right.
Because if we understand that, like, 3,000 years ago, there was no United States. Mm-hmm. There was no Europe. There was no France. There was no... a lot of the things that we're familiar with. Like, for example, my wife and I just came back from London and Paris. And one of my favorite things in Paris that we've done a few times is going to the Palace Versailles. Okay, where King Louis lived.
Yeah.
So you go to Versailles, and it's just gilded, like gold on the gate. Like, it's huge. It's majestic. The gardens are huge. You can't see it all in a day. It's just massive. And so you're walking through there, and they're letting you know that Versailles is older than the United States.
Yeah.
When you are in a building that's older than your country, and your country is not new, it messes with your mind. You're like, wow, this is like, it changes your timeline. So what people have to understand is, like, the Israel-Palestine conflict is not new, and Israel today is not Israel 3,000 years ago, and they should not have to be.
Right.
And so when we are talking about these issues, that helps pull people to the present and say, okay, if we're just talking about modern day Israel, what do you, person I'm talking to, know about modern Israel? Right. And if they don't know anything, then the honest question is, so why are you talking about it?
Right. Yeah, because I think a lot of people, there are a lot of people who don't understand that Israel was a direct consequence of Nazi Germany. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think.
You mean the creation of of their space,
right.
The land they inhabit.
Yeah,
because of the end of World War II.
That's what makes it an easier conversation, right? If we do start from 47,
right. Yeah, because I
stuff from the past, before that. But yeah, like just starting from 47, that's probably an easier conversation to have, isn't it?
No, it's not. And the reason it's not is because you presume that people know anything about what happened in 47. Oh, okay. No, no, they don't. I don't think. I don't think there's any easy way to have these conversations, but I do think that if you're going to have them, then and I'll be transparent. Like, I used to run a philosophy group for several years, and because of that, I have an approach to these kind of conversations that different than other people. I like to start, before I even start the conversation, I like to see, do we even need to have this conversation? Mm-hmm. And if somebody's trying to have a conversation with me about Israel-Palestine, I'm thinking about, okay, who is this person and how much do you know? How educated are you on this subject? And if they're not, then to me, the real question is, why do you want to talk about this? What is it that you want to say? If you want to push a particular viewpoint, okay, but how much do you know? What have you what have you learned? How much have you educated yourself to earn an opinion?
Right.
Because a lot of people just have opinions, but they haven't earned them. I believe you earn the right for people to listen to you.
Right.
You educate yourself, you inform yourself, you read books, not just videos, not just articles, but books. Mark Lamont Hill has a good book called Except for Palestine.
Yeah.
Like he's got, I encourage people to read his book. Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis. She talks about Palestine in that book. Noam Chomsky talks about Israel-Palestine. You can find the videos on YouTube. I encourage people not just there, but those are resources to look at if you want to hear like informed people talk about this in a deep, intelligent way. And then you start reading that stuff, man, and you start hearing what some of these people saying. You just go, wait a minute. I don't even know if I want to talk to you about this.
Right.
Like, why does I don't know about this, man? Like, read this book first.
Yeah. No, but what was it? What was it? I think I lost it. Yeah, my bad. I was thinking about something and I completely forgot it.
No, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I kind of wish I had been there to see this argument about Killmonger because, like, I'm still thinking about that.
I probably can't even. I could try to find it, but I probably can't even find it no more.
Well, this
And
is my unfair summary of that conversation. Basically, you know, black guys who probably listen to a lot of Tariq Nasheed, they just saw like one side of it. It was just like, yeah, man, see, Killmonger was speaking facts. Because, you know, look, when I was watching the movie, I was like, yeah, he's making some good points. And then he got to the part where he was like, yeah, we're going to kill the women. And so I was like, whoa, hey, oh, what? No, like, you know what I'm saying? So,
But
and then, as you said, using the girl as a shield.
not even that. Like the part that got me in the movie, this was even before you even find out more about him. It was like it was so weird to me. Again, social media, terrible place, but it was so weird to me that all over social media, everybody kept obsessing over him murdering the people in the museum scene. And I'm just like, because they were like, oh, about time somebody did that. And I'm just like, okay, this lady sipping her coffee who works at the museum, y'all know she's not
Right.
Lord Pennyworth or whatever who went to Africa and stole that shit back in 1913, right? Like, y'all know she didn't do that, right? She's a lady who went to school, not unlike myself, read some books, and became an expert in the field and worked at a fucking museum. That lady didn't deserve to have her coffee poisoned and shot and killed in a museum. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Exactly. For me, the Killmonger thing that really, because like you're watching a movie and like I watch movies very critically because I love writing, and so I love to see how a story is written and then performed.
Right.
And so I'm watching it, just enjoying it, and taking note of the things Killmonger's doing, and I'm thinking, okay, well, it seems like Marvel has finally made a good villain. Because remember, Marvel was making really crappy villains until Loki, Killmonger, and Thanos. And then we were like, okay, it seems like they figured it out.
Hey, listen, I'll give them Red Skull. Red Skull. But then again, I loved Red Skull before the movie came out. So
Yeah,
like when I was a little kid.
See, Red Skull was good, but the problem was my problem was that Red Skull is too big of a villain to go in just like one movie. Like, I would have liked to see him in more movies.
Well,
like,
I think the issue with that was like some behind the scenes shit. Like there was times when the actor said he didn't want to come back, and then there was times when the actor said he did want to come back, but then the studio wasn't trying to bring him
oh
back.
yeah. I don't know if Hugo Downing,
Hugo
I think is his name. He was
Weaving.
Hugo Weaving. Yeah, I don't know if he would have wanted to come back, but they didn't bring him back for Infinity War.
No, that was the guy from The Walking Dead in that.
Yeah,
It was
that was a different guy, and they still did it. My thing with Killmonger was the first issue. Like, he did a lot of terrible stuff, but the thing that made me go, wait, huh? was when Everett Ross is like, yeah, like he's one of us. We taught him everything he knows. He's doing what the U.S. government taught him. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. Spooked by the door. So if this man is acting, if he's destabilizing the way the U.S. government destabilizes, you know, only in Marvel, wink, wink, then the question becomes, what exactly are we praising here? Then when Killmonger gives his plan to ship like vibranium and vibranium weapons all over the world, I'm like, wait a minute, guys. Tony Stark is alive. What do you guys think is gonna go on here? Do you what like the way people just seem to just move right along with the notion of a global war in which so many people would be killed, including black people, and then not only that, but the weapons would be taken, the weapons would be confiscated, and then the very people that you don't like now have the weapons. Like it never, none of it ever made sense to me. And that movie had holes in it. I still enjoy it, but it had holes in it. But then I'm listening to the way people talk about Killmonger, and I'm like, wait a minute, y'all. Like because and here's what's interesting. The last thing I'll say about it. What's interesting is that, again, through the lens of radical black feminism, you realize, oh, men are always going to be given the benefit of the doubt, particularly black men in the black community. Because guess who was actually right the entire time? Nakia.
That's what me and D
Well,
was saying.
all right, this may be my toxic Black Panther thought. Low key at the end, they kind of fixed it a tiny bit in Black Panther 2. I'll give them that. But let's take Black Panther 2 out of it. My thoughts initially after the first Black Panther, there was a small part of me that was upset that they was going to share vibranium with the rest of the world. Because like I said, this may be like my toxic thought, but it was refreshing that one black country had that shit, right? And I'm of the mindset that when Africa starts opening its borders to others, that's when our shit gets took. And so there was a part of me that was kind of iffy when he went to the UN. It was like, I'm going to tell y'all the dirt. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I don't know.
Wait. I'll say this. I never got the impression from the end of the first movie that he was ever going to share the vibranium. My impression is that he was going to reveal the presence of Wakanda to the world so that they would have more of an international standing. And that was my impression at the end of the movie. And then Black Panther 2 confirms that, because if Wakanda wanted to share the vibranium, then why is France sending special forces in to try to take it?
Well,
because Wakanda was never going to share.
Right. I agree with you on that point, but also, like we've learned, European countries are very fucking greedy. So, I think there was like, there's 2 points to that. A, they could have been willing to share it, but T'Challa died, and then that plan got taken back. Or B, there was an agreement that Wakanda was going to uphold of sharing it, but France was like, "Why share when we can fucking take?" You know what I'm saying?
I don't think Wakanda was ever going to share vibranium.
Okay.
Ever. I think Wakanda would have shared some medical advances, not including vibranium, that could have helped people. I think Wakanda would have been a very humanitarian member of the UN.
Right.
But I don't think Wakanda was ever going to share it, no matter who was in charge, because, like, I just don't think they were ever going to do it. But I think that, like, watching all of that happen, where T'Challa says to his ancestors that they were wrong, and Nakia, like, he ends up taking Nakia's approach. It's like, y'all, like this is where the conversation with all the Killmonger had a point, folks, leads into political discussions about radical black feminism and stuff. Because it's like, well, guys, this is what women are saying in real life, that black women are giving us wisdom and guidance and insight, and we don't listen to them because we gravitate toward a man who's charismatic but don't have a grasp of reality. Somebody like, for example, Dr. Umar. People love Dr. Umar, but then you go listen to him and you're like, I don't hear the depth here. You know what I'm saying? Like the depth of policy and understanding of like politics, not in the horse race stuff, but grassroots activism. What's going to actually get things moving and happening? He don't have that.
Because with Dr. Umar, I'll say his entire philosophy to me over the past couple of years, especially, has been very one-track minded.
Marcus Garvey.
Marcus Garvey shit, and not and even more so limited than Marcus Garvey, because Marcus Garvey went through many different avenues. Dr. Umar is only really focusing on building this fucking school. Which, by the way, how many payments of $20 do we gotta give this nigga before he make the school?
There it is. Look, I was about to say, I ain't heard nothing about that school recently, but I ain't gonna touch on that because there's a couple brothers out here struggling when it comes to questions about the money. DJ Envy got a couple questions about the money with him right now, but I ain't gonna talk about that. So I agree. Like Dr. Umar, unfortunately, we do this in real life where we gravitate toward the charismatic black man, and we like what they're spitting, you know. But when it comes to like a black woman who has a plan, you know, and can get us to where we need to be, we're not listening to her like in the movie. And so then at the end, after all the fighting and the killing, it's like, oh well, maybe Nakia had a point, and Nakia was just middle ground. It was a non-violent middle ground. But unfortunately, it took all this violence to get there because he didn't listen to her sooner. You know,
think about the same thing when. Now, granted, they didn't really have a character that expressed this kind of like Nakia, but I feel the same way when I know. Well, most of it was a joke, but there are people that genuinely was like, "Oh, well, Thanos might have been right." I'm just like, no, he was stupid. He had a gauntlet with gems that could do anything he thought about, right? His first thought was to kill half the population in the universe. Why didn't you just think about more resources?
See, okay. So I completely agree with you that there was never any logic in Thanos' point at all. However, I think the reason why Thanos would not have agreed with expanding resources is because I think he even said his fear was like life would continue to grow unchecked. And so where I think Thanos' plan is really like evil, because Thanos actually includes himself in the plan. He includes that the random snap might include him. But where his plan is really sinister, that I don't think people really thought about, because you know most people didn't read the comics. If you're walking around and then all of a sudden half of all life disappears and you don't know why, and then you find out that there was a person who had enough power to snap away all of life because it had grown too much, how is everyone not going to have PTSD?
Right.
And how like, I think where Thanos' plan was really evil was that now everybody's going to think twice about reproduction.
Right.
And living with this fear of like, what if it happens again?
Right.
And I'm like, yo, that's sinister. Like, the people who said Thanos had a point, I was just like, I would much rather just pretend like you're joking and just like, because if you're serious, then I just got to block you.
To me, I get what you're saying about the life growing unchecked. I think the issue with that becomes the universe is infinite. You know what I'm saying? And so why would you have to check life in an infinite universe? You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, on top of that, I think on where the other evil part comes in with Thanos is he was double dipping too, because before he got the Infinity Stones, he was going from planet to planet and killing half of their population. So when you did the snap, I mainly am thinking about the Asgardians when he did this, right? Because when he did the snap, it's half of all life. He already killed half of them on that ship with Thor and left the other ones alive. So now you got them down to a quarter after the snap.
That's a great point.
You
That's a
know,
great
same thing
point.
with
You spitting
Gamora's
facts
people.
now. You spitting
Same thing with
facts.
Gamora's people. He did the same thing to them. They showed in the thing. He said, half of y'all here, half of y'all are facing the firing squad. All right, now there's a quarter of them left. You know what I'm saying? So like, did his snap account for the people he already fucked up? You know what I mean? Hell, they said even his planet. I think he killed all of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not even half of those left. You know what I'm saying?
Not all people on Titan died because one of the members of Titan made an appearance in Eternals.
No,
Yeah,
I know who you're
yeah,
talking about. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
The
Star
Harry
Fox.
Styles character. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I've got a few more minutes and then I need to hop
Oh
off.
well, yeah. I was about
yeah.
to
Yeah,
I was about
I
to wrap
was.
it up. We got over 90 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Troutman, for coming in and helping
Thank you,
us
No
sir.
to at
problem.
least
Thank
like
y'all, man. This was a pleasure.
like at least like helping us in a way to like like how to guide our search for knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
In
Yes,
this
sir.
topic and other not and other topics as well.
Yes, sir.
Um, any final thoughts before we cut out?
No, I think this has been a great conversation, and I think this conversation shows the value of taking the approach
Yeah.
of because we're all doing it. We're informing ourselves. We're trying to make sure we get good information, and what I encourage people to really take a look at is understand the way that stories are presented to you, the framing.
Mhm.
Understand that you've got to have a certain level of education to really speak intelligently about any topic, and there's so much of a rush to I have a feeling and an opinion, let me tell people,
Mhm.
instead that patience we talked about of do I know enough to talk about this, okay, well if I don't, let me go educate myself, and then pay attention to like the language that's used and the way people are talked about, the way
Right.
different groups are talked about, what's said and what's not said. This is the kind of stuff that helps you step back and see what's going on, because this all matters because every day somebody's trying to push an agenda on us, and there
Yeah.
are people trying to manipulate us. And if we don't understand exactly what's going on and how it's happening, then we can't show the compassion we need to show. That's why you hear us talking about those who are suffering.
Mm.
Because if we got too caught up in like the arguing, the back and forth, and the attacks on social media and all this stuff, we forget about the Palestinian children that are suffering.
Yeah.
We forget about the Israeli children that died and are suffering. Like, and I don't want to forget about them. I don't want to forget about the innocent people. And as far as the stuff that the governments are doing, that's not for me to get involved in because I'm not in the government.
Right.
Where I, as an everyday person, want to be involved is in the care and concern of everyday innocent people. That's where I am.
Right.
And so I think all of this stuff, everything we talked about today, helps you to get properly oriented because so many people are trying to change your mind. So many people are trying to make money off of your outrage. They're
Yeah.
trying to get you to go in different directions. This is the kind of stuff that helps you get solid footing so that you can be confident in what you think and you feel about any topic in the world.
Mm. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. We had a blast. Thank you so much. It's very informative. Y'all, please make sure y'all follow him on his page. Make sure y'all follow our individual pages. Shout out to Tenzin. Shout out to our brother Los, who couldn't be here with us today.
Yes.
We do this every Wednesday, y'all. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. We are a podcast again, run by three actual brothers. And we love y'all. We hope to add y'all to our family. And if y'all missed the show today, y'all can catch it either on our page or on our YouTube page. Thank you so much, and we'll see y'all later.
All right, peace.
Peace.